Welcome to today's webinar, everyone. Lovely to see so many here. Just going to get right into this really interesting topic, Sustaining India's Hidden Water Resource, presented by Professor Passant Maheshwari and also Lewis Daly. So thank you once again. My name's Trevor Pillar. I'm the Partnerships Manager here at iSwarm, and we're in for a really interesting time. Here's where you are all from. Just delightful to see so many joining us. It's such a critical topic. A couple of webinars coming up there in the future, and there's a lot more behind these. Free webinars from iSwarm, Australian Water School, and also a couple of courses down the bottom there. HECRAS Water Modelling will be held in June in Sydney. We'd love to see you at that as well. All right, today's agenda. The format for today is Passant and Lewis will speak to us for 30 minutes on this most interesting topic. More than interesting, it's actually making a difference in India and a few other places around the world. And then after they've finished speaking, open to you. Give us all you've got, discussion and questions for another 20 minutes. We'd love to hear from you. Well, let's get stuck into this. Today's two presenters are Passant Maheshwari, Professor at Western Sydney University, and he's right into water engineering, water resources management, and interactions with the landscape. A key aspect of Passant's work is addressing significant local water issues and engaging with the community, government agencies and stakeholders. There's the nutshell of what we're going to talk about today and what Passant's put his whole effort and time and effort into. Along with Passant, Lewis Daly from Vessels Tech is going to be speaking, and his skills are in the IT area. In fact, the tech development and support for MARVI comes out of Lewis's company. So he's developed MyWell, an app, and a lot of other things as well to enable communities to understand groundwater and to form village-led groundwater intervention. So it's a big welcome to both of you, but especially to you, Lewis.
Yep. Thanks for having me here. Yep. Hello from sunny Adelaide, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you a little bit later on in the presentation.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, thank you very much. And so, we'll hand right over to Passant first of all, and then he'll pass on to Lewis from there. Thanks, Passant, once again for joining us. We're so privileged to have you.
Thank you very much, Trevor. It's a great pleasure. And also, I would like to, first of all, thank iSwarm for giving us this opportunity. And we build on from the last webinar we had.
That's right.
And this webinar, I will just briefly introduce the MARVI project. And then I will talk about the village groundwater cooperatives. And then Louis will talk about the development of MyWell App. And then I will, towards the end, I will summarize some of the key learning from the MARVI project. So first of all, this was a huge partnership between 9 organizations which are listed here. And there were about 30 researchers. And at the same time, we had 30 farmer researchers. And this project started in 2012, so ran for 5 years. And we're still working on many of those aspects. And hopefully it will continue for a while. Now, what the MARVI project was about or is about is there are 3 key things. One is the participatory data collection using villagers and sharing information and building understanding of what is happening, what can be done, and engaging with the policymakers, government agencies, groundwater users, and many other stakeholders in the process. And the project was carried out in 2 states, Rajasthan and Gujarat. In Rajasthan, the site was located in Udaipur district and in Dharta watershed. In Gujarat, it is in Aravali district and in Megras areas. So, and these 2 sites are not too far, about 250 kilometers from each other, and they're 2 unique sites in terms of the people and the soil and other conditions. One of the important aspects of this project was Bhujal Jankars or BJs, and this is a Hindi word which means groundwater informed volunteers. And we had 25 of them in Rajasthan, 10 in Gujarat. And this whole idea was nurtured by ACT, Arid Communities and Technologies, under the leadership of Dr. Yogesh Jadeja. And these BJs were given training in hydrogeologic aspects, mapping, watershed, water table monitoring, water quality monitoring. And they acted as the local champions, and they were really interface between the research team and community. And by doing this, they felt very empowered and valued. So this was a big sort of aspect of this project. These pictures show their field training about various aspects of groundwater management, monitoring. They were also given classroom training and as well as a lot of field work. And we had several meetings with them during last 5 years, discussing various things. And these are some of the BJs from Gujarat. And we had community meeting. This one is in Dartha watershed. Now coming to the village groundwater cooperatives, what we have realized through this project was one of the ways we can better manage groundwater is through cooperation, sharing water, and then working together and using some of the tools. For example, MyWell App, which Luis will talk more about it. But basically, connecting this group of people or cooperatives we call VGC or Village Groundwater Cooperatives through Gram Panchayat. And then if we are successful or worked well, then we can outscale to block level or tehsil level and district level, state level, and the national level. Now, we developed some framework how we can form these village groundwater cooperatives. So we looked at various aspects through a number of discussions. And so there are 5 main aspects. One is farmers will not be worse off under VGC. So what that means is whether you have a groundwater now or don't have groundwater, but if you form these village groundwater cooperatives, everyone will do better than what they are doing now. And then farmers will not pump water more than the recharge annually. So that's the important part, because otherwise we can't sustain groundwater use. And then there will be strategies to reduce groundwater demand and increase supplies through recharge. And also there will need to be some redirection or redesign of government programs to support these cooperatives. And at the same time, we need to facilitate or support these VGC groups to succeed. So these were the fundamentals of forming these village groundwater cooperatives. We had a number of community forums and discussions, and some of the points that came out of this initial dialogue were convincing farmers to share and manage groundwater as a common pool resource was the hardest task. So farmers who have groundwater, I think one of the questions immediately comes up is, why should I share this water? And how will it benefit me? Because I am already having groundwater. And at the same time, people who don't have groundwater, they have the question that why these people who have groundwater should share with us, and what we need to do to contribute to this so that they can be part of the sharing process. And some farmers are selling water to their neighbors, but that's not the same thing as sharing water and not managing resource as a common pool resource. What came out, 2 main points came out, that what will make farmers to see the merit of this cooperative management of groundwater. 2 points. One is there is no guarantee that the good access to groundwater you have now, not necessarily it will be there tomorrow. And if your neighbor drills deeper, your groundwater could be their groundwater anyways. So that was a point, and people sort of understood that that's important. And if you work together, you may have better access to government programs that may help in terms of improved livelihood and water in the future. So these were the 2 points which really changed their mind, and the people or farmers came together. And so what it means is we need to change the hearts and minds of the people to make this sort of move. So what we have done so far, 3 village groundwater cooperatives formed in Rajasthan and 2 in Gujarat through their farmers' own initiative. Cooperatives now have their own bank account. They have deposited money for a common activity of these cooperatives. Also, the formation of these cooperatives have encouraged some of the farmers to access other initiatives. And also farmers in Rajasthan, for example, they are facing this blue bull problem, because these bulls come any time of the day or night and they can destroy crops. So by forming these cooperatives, they thought we can work together on some other aspect like communal fencing. And also recently, the state government in Rajasthan wanted to establish these seed cooperatives, and they have come together and now they are working to take advantage of this and improve their livelihood. So these VGCs are helping to do some other things which were not possible if they were working on their own. So this is just a beginning. Now, what I would like to introduce to you is Luis, because we can collect all this water table depth data, water quality, water level in check dams, but they need to be available to other people, and so that they can visualize what's happening, they can make decisions on what to do. So I would like to invite Luis to now explain the journey he has gone through.
Thank you, Professor Passant, and thank you once again to Icewarm and Trevor for having me here today. As Professor has said, my name is Lewis, and I'm going to be sharing the work that I've been doing on Project MARVI, which is this specific project of MyWell. MyWell is an application that enables these farmers and Bujojangkos or BJs to crowdsource groundwater levels. Before I get into that, I wanted to give you just a little bit of a background about myself and my company, Vessels Tech. Vessels Tech is a technology company, and we build technology solutions in emerging markets. We're a small team that really came out of my university, Carnegie Mellon University, and Project MARVI and MyWell has really been our first big thing that we've done out in the field. We're working on projects across different radical out there ideas, from crowdsourcing to blockchain and AI, both in India and the Philippines. So yeah, we've been really excited for this opportunity, and we hope we get to continue working on it. Onto MyWell. So what is MyWell? We really see MyWell as the technology component. As Passant was saying, one of the tools that the BJs and the groundwater cooperatives have in order to help them to do their jobs and to understand the groundwater situation. It's an application that enables farmers to crowdsource these groundwater data, and it lets them farmers participate in a network of data collectors. It empowers them to understand the science behind the groundwater and actively be a part of and look for solutions to the problems that they're facing. The overall process for MyWell to improve the groundwater situation can really be broken down and understood in 3 parts. It starts by farmers going and collecting groundwater data. This can be things like rainfall measurements, well water table depths, and so on. MyWell then aggregates these data together and provides information and insights into the groundwater situation, both at a local level, their own individual, also aggregated out to the village, and then to even a postcode or a greater water table kind of size. This information is disseminated to farmers, villages, and groundwater cooperatives, leading to an improved understanding of groundwater and better groundwater conservation. And so what can it do? Well, MyWell works just about anywhere. It works over smartphone, over SMS, and as well as a website. And users can submit well readings, check dam readings, as well as rain gauge measurements as well. We're currently working on adding water quality measurements as well, which will really complete the picture of groundwater into these places that are being monitored. I'm going to talk through some of the features. I don't have a demo for you today, but I'm just going to be showing you kind of some of the screens and the interface that users see. Keep in mind that this is the MyWell on Android devices. So a lot of these features are also available on SMS and on the website. This here is the map page that users get taken to at the start of the app. You can see here we have check dams, we have wells, and rainfall stations, which are all registered within the system. We can see at a glance well statistics, And we can also do a search, so by a village or postcode, or even each well is given an ID, so you can search by those IDs as well. When we drill down into a specific resource, be that a well, rain gauge, or a check dam, we call them a resource in kind of the MyWell naming conventions. When we drill into a resource, we get a few things. We first see a picture of the well, which is crowdsourced from the farmers. So these pictures were actually taken part of Project MARVI, and we've been able to incorporate them to give a greater sense of personalization of the app and ownership of the well. So we can see here a picture. Each well, as I was saying, or resource has an ID, and we can see some at-a-glance statistics. So we have the depth to water table, so the current last reading of that well, as well as the average village depth to water table. So the idea being that at a glance, a farmer or someone looking at this well can see how it compares to the rest of the village. Scrolling down on this page a bit further, we see some historical reading. MyWell stores data from the last however many years you'd like, and it displays the last 2 years within the MyWell application. So we can see these in snapshots of 1 month, 3 month, or year-long intervals, and get a good idea of how today's water levels compare to what they were over the last 2 years. And we have similar views for the check dams and rainfall stations as well, with the cumulative rainfall. I'd like to just draw your attention to, for example, this middle graphic here. So we can see that the depth to water table 2 years ago was higher than it was last year. So this gives kind of a pretty easy way to see at a glance what's going on with the well. Recording a reading in MyWell is quite simple. This is, once again, the recording reading for just a well, but you can also do the same for rainfall stations and check dams. And it requires 4 fields to be filled out by the user. We have some robust offline tools as well. So if the user is out of data coverage, or perhaps they don't have any credit left in their account, they can save the reading for later and then upload when they have Wi-Fi access. We also have a bunch of tools for enabling people to upload a lot of historical readings all at once. So drag and drop Excel files, and that's something we're actually working on and improving as we go along. And finally, we come to the management screen. So the management screen allows users to register new wells quickly and easily. You can simply drag around this little pin on the map, as well as put in a latitude and longitude that you already knew. There's a few other fields that need to be filled out to help with validation and making sure our data comes in quite nicely into the system. So MyWell, before I talk about the technology, I thought I'd actually share kind of some of the journey of implementing MyWell. And it started as a university project with Carnegie Mellon University and University of Western Sydney. It started with a few developers, not even myself, who were just interested in this idea. And we kind of grew from just this idea of submitting well readings over SMS, just simple SMS kind of queries. And it's really grown into this application that can run on Android phones. We've got an iOS version, which is a little bit different, and then a website. Yeah, so it's been kind of 2 years of development on and off, and we've been lucky enough to continue working on it. This is kind of the technology is really what we've kind of arrived at now, but it's been a incremental approach as we've kind of developed this over the last couple of years. And now when we do get to technology, this is kind of the exciting part for me. So instead of talking for hours about it, I thought I'd just share 3 things that are really important about the technology behind MyWell. There's this idea in my field called microservices, which is really just an approach of building technology that is modular and scalable. So MyWell has been built with this modular approach, which allows us to reconfigure, scale things, and add new components to MyWell quite easily. MyWell integrates with SMS providers, both in India and in Australia, and we can integrate with new providers in whatever country that we choose, wherever we'd like to expand or wherever we end up expanding MyWell. Finally, MyWell is hosted in Amazon Web Services. So this is probably the biggest cloud service provider that there is. And this means that MyWell is in a secure database that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's backed up by even to the minute. So recovering data, if there ever was a problem, is quite easy and secure. So the impact of MyWell. There's 3 key points I'd really like to make or highlight about where we see MyWell having impact and the potential for MyWell to impact the lives of farmers and village groundwater cooperatives in the future. Firstly, MyWell empowers farmers to be a part of the solution. No longer does groundwater research happen by scientists with degrees. It's now the everyday farmer who's armed with tools and information to help and support them to engage with the groundwater research and their own groundwater intervention. And that's a really powerful thing. MyWell helps build groundwater cooperatives, groundwater sharing within communities. And by enabling greater visibility into what's happening to this invisible resource, what's happening into groundwater, communities can come together to share and understand and intervene, as Passant was sharing earlier. And finally, MyWell helps to visualize this invisible resource. And really that is one of the key outcomes for what we want to achieve with MyWell. And we're looking at other ways where we can increase the visibility into this, things such as I was saying earlier, adding water quality measurements to complete the groundwater picture. So the results. These are some of the early findings for what we've seen when using MyWell on the ground. I was lucky enough earlier this year to be able to travel to the Meglajan data watershed and conduct some workshops and field trials with the BJs there. So we ran these field trials. We gave demos of MyWell in action in workshops and surveyed 15 BJs about their opinion of using MyWell. In our field trials, we also went out to a well and recorded some readings, as you can see in the picture here. And we got some BJs to submit readings that they'd already recorded on paper. So they had, maybe for the last couple of weeks, recordings that hadn't yet been transferred, and we got to see them and we got to show them how to do it in front of them. This was a really great opportunity for us to teach people about MyWell, but more importantly, for us to learn from them, to learn about the ways that they interact with technology and about the ideas that they have for improving MyWell. So these are some of the results that we found. This is a quick summary. And this really comes from not only the conversations and the observations we made, but we conducted some surveys. So on the positive side, BJs noted and liked how MyWell can be used to make their jobs easier and also more accurate. They saw the potential for how this technology can be used with crop planning and understanding their own water needs. And they also had this inherent trust of MyWell, which is a good thing. However, that's something that we need to respect and be careful with. They trusted that when they submitted data in MyWell, it was there forever. It was secure and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And it was also accessible so that other people could see the readings that they had recorded instantly and easily. So there's three main points that we've learned from it. And the first of them is the need to translate MyWell into Hindi. And this is almost like we've known about this for a long time. It's been a to-do list item. But the workshop really drove home how important it is for us to add extra translations to Hindi and the other local languages out in Gujarat and Rajasthan. We found that graphs were difficult to read on small screens, especially on older Android devices, which aren't as kind of friendly to work with. But these are the devices that these people are using to use MyWell. So it needs to work the best on these small devices, really. So we need to find ways to make the graphs more easily understood and easily seen. And finally, there were a few minor user interface bugs, which to me, as someone, and to many people listening, people who are very well acquainted with technology and applications on their phone, might seem trivial, but when we saw the BJs using MyWell, they ended up becoming real big hurdles, especially for these users who have low digital literacy. Yeah, these are all some really valuable learnings which we're taking back to the next iteration and design and development phase of MyWell. Actually, I have a funny anecdote as well. I just remembered some of the other feedback we got was that MyWell should have 2 gigabytes of free data, and MyWell should play music in the background when you're using it. And I first kind of dismissed that as, this person's kind of, they don't really understand applications, or, we haven't really played music on websites since maybe the early 2000s. But really, that highlighted how much people want to use MyWell, and especially with the 2 gigabytes of data. Yeah, this is a real big hurdle. People not having access to data or data being expensive is a real big hurdle. So we need to find ways to make MyWell use less data, as little data as possible, to become really cheap to use and more accessible for all of our users, not just those who have maybe more money and can afford better smartphones or can afford better data plans. So what's next for us? Well, in the short term, we're working on translations, as I said. as well as looking at user interface improvements and user experience improvement. We're also, I'm really keen to try out this idea which came up in one of the workshops, which is to use QR codes to identify wells, rain gauges and check dams. So one of the issues that we found was that people had to remember, if they're recording the readings for multiple wells, they had to remember each of the well IDs or numbers for each well. So we're going to build out the system where people can use MyWell to scan a QR code, much like Paytm, which has become very popular in India lately, which will reduce the number of fields that need to be filled out in well when making a well reading down from 4 to 1 or 2. And this will also hopefully improve the quality of data, as farmers will be less likely to get the incorrect well, as they have to physically be at the well to record the reading. Finally, we're also working on a set of tools to make MyWell more accessible for researchers and more useful for researchers. Among others, we have a researcher from Flinders University who's trialing MyWell in Laos, and we want to make it really easy and possible for MyWell to be adapted and reused for different places other than India. Looking to the longer term of MyWell's development, we're really interested in pursuing partnerships and integrations with our platform. This really is the future that we see for MyWell in order to become a useful tool for groundwater conservation projects around the world and citizen engagement with groundwater around the world. We're already working on a number of integrations with one integration with the International Groundwater Resources Assessment Center in the Netherlands. And this is my chance to say, if you're interested in working with us, please get in touch. We'd love to partner with you or integrate with you in any way, shape or form. Sharing of scarce resources isn't a problem that's unique to groundwater as well. So we're hoping that this MyWell and this MARVI approach of participatory resource monitoring and sharing can be adapted and used to other places, other projects where engaging local citizens in being part of the solution to these problems and sharing resources is the key. And the final point I'd like to make is that we've had a number of talks with people about an open water data platform. If you're not aware of what open data is, it's an initiative much like open source software or open access journals. Institutions can freely publish data and access each other's data. And this is something that we could really see working with groundwater research institutions and groundwater researchers around the world, where we can collaborate, share data, reduce the amount of institutional silos, and enable more cooperation between different institutions, so that when they come to the end of a project, the data isn't just discarded and left alone in an Excel file. So we want to find ways that we can collaborate and learn and share even more, and open data is one of those ways. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to now hand back to Professor Passant. These are my details in case you want to get in touch.
Thank you, Luis, for all the things you have done with the MyWell. This is very important part of sharing groundwater, because data is power, and without data we can't do much in terms of managing and dialogue and discussion. So I will quickly summarize some of the key points which came out of the MARVI work and the MARVI declaration we had in the main workshop we had in Ahmedabad. What I can share here is make significant investment to build the capacity of the community, including schools, to improve groundwater literacy, and that will dispel the groundwater myths in community. The second point is implement community-led village water security plan using local rainfall, local groundwater level data, check dam data, water quality data, because these things vary even from village to village. So data at the tehsil level or block level are not going to be helpful, but we need village level. And we need to outscale this BJ program to other areas based on the MARVI experience. And we need a formal connection between BJs and Gram Panchayats to facilitate BJs' involvement in groundwater and other natural resource management schemes. Also, we need to recognize the water table, rainfall data, check dam data collected by BJs as widely available, and also recognize that they are reliable and facilitate BJs to play a significant role in integrated water management of 5 waters, which is rainwater, surface water, groundwater, soil water, and wastewater. And I think if we can do this, we can have a better water futures. And initiate crowdsourcing program to measure rainfall in every village of India. And this is, we have proved that the one of investment of very small amount, which is about 100, 250 rupees per rain gauge. And if we can have it everywhere in India, that will be great. And also implement policies that give incentives to farmers to grow crops which use less number of irrigations. So these were some of the important messages I would like to share. In conclusions, BGS can collect highly reliable information for groundwater levels, rainfall, recharge estimation, and BJ collected data can be used for village scale groundwater balance analysis and modeling. And the participatory village level monitoring approach developed by MARVI can empower communities and really manage groundwater in a more sustainable and effective ways. So thank you very much.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Passant. Thank you, Lewis. That's terrific rundown, and we've got a ton of questions to get through here. The first one's from Indonesia. Yuriana asks a few questions here. From the picture of BJs, there are no women doing the groundwater measurement. Are there any female BJs? That's one. Do these BJs have monthly salary? And what are the shortcomings for applying this community involvement / ownership approach? Well, what's the downside? So there's 3 questions there. Female BJs, do they have a salary, and what's the downside?
That's a really important question. At the beginning of this whole project, we wanted 50% of the BJs to be women, and we advertised and we tried to contact, but very hard to mobilize women participants as BJs. So we have one BJ in Data watershed as a woman. And another issue is sometimes they have they have to walk around, go to these wells, and there's still the women participants are a bit hesitant to go, and that is one of the reasons. But we have every intention to involve as BJs, and also they have been involved in other aspects of the project.
Yep.
Now, coming to the second part of the question, we have provided small token remuneration to these BJs. So it is 1,000 rupees per month, and they go every Sunday, every week, 1 day, half a day, to these wells to monitor groundwater. The third part of the question is, are there any shortcomings? You have to really nurture these BJs to succeed. So if you don't look after them in terms of what they're doing, then the program will fail.
One for you, Lewis. This is from Yuriana again, Indonesia. Yes. Does the app sort the data? If, for example, some farmers may fake the data where the value is strange compared to other areas. So you see strange data, you think it might be fake data. Is there a monitoring well that's being monitored by authorized standard values of measuring, like let's say professional measuring device? So there's a couple of questions there.
Yeah. So I can answer the first little part, and then I'll hand over to Passant because he's got more experience with some of the data validation stuff.
Yep.
So we have a few forms of validation, such as when we know the actual depth of the well. So if that people are recording readings that are wildly out of kind of the whack of where it should be, then we can we simply say this doesn't look right to us. And we've also been thinking about ways to improve the validation. So if you, for example, do an average of all the water table depth for across a village, and then do a kind of a standard deviation or 2 standard deviations of that, and if the well reading goes outside of in that range, then you could potentially flag it as well. So that's something we've thought about. We have some validation, something we've thought about to improve it, and then I'll hand over to Passant about the standard value or the Central Groundwater Board's readings as well.
So we have a BJ facilitator who will randomly check the groundwater levels, and then if there's a significant difference, then that person will talk to the particular BJ. So, for example, during the initial part, because these people didn't have any training of research or collecting data, so they were not really sure at the beginning that how valuable this information is. So one of the BJs, for example, he didn't go to the field, but he just put some value, and that person. So the facilitator found out that, and then he talked to him that this is the problem, and he immediately confessed, went to the temple and said, I will never do it again. That sort of thing. So you have to be watchful about what these BJs are monitoring, and once they have developed that ethics of what they're doing, there is no problem. So after that, many other BJs just became really professional, and so we need that sort of nurturing, checking, and support.
Yep, that's really great. Thanks very much. We've got a ton of questions coming up here, so we're going to have to keep our responses a bit shorter. But Yogita was a fellow here at IceWarm in Adelaide, and Yogita, we're so pleased you are here with us from Udaipur in India. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Louis. Hello, Trevor.
Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, let's see you again here. Trevor, I would like to ask one question to Louis. Louis, is it possible for BJs to take reading one by one in a day and upload continuously up until the day, and then he will take another reading next week? And is it possible, means he's sending reading every week without any problem?
Sorry, I don't really understand. So you mean
if he is taking readings for 10 wells and he put all together, means he put readings one by one for every well wherever he goes there, and then put reading and then send and next up to the next well. And when he comes to the next week, he have to register again, or he can just put the code and just send readings?
Oh, he can just put in the code. Yeah, just the code of the well.
And you're going to stay with us. There may be some things you can comment on. We'd love you to do that. And now a question from Mir Ahmad. Do they have a water user association in the project areas, the MARVI project areas? And what's the relation to VGCs? Is there a national water user association?
So in Rajasthan, there is no water users association, but in Gujarat, there is water users association. And these the VGCs over there are connected with the water users association. So some of the members are part of the water users association.
Right. No, that's great. That's a great question. Yep. The other one comes from Sabash, and he asks, how is the water budgeting in watershed helping to improve water productivity?
Hello, Subhashji. I think that's a good question. So with the work we have done in terms of groundwater monitoring, rainfall, we can estimate how much discharge has taken place. And then based on that, what crops can be grown and what crops will require less water. So I think by following these, so first of all, how much water is available, and then crops which will take less number of irrigation. If we can select them, then overall we can improve the water productivity. So it's about crop selection, which crops to grow, and that requires a lot of convincing to the farmers that ultimately they're after their livelihood, and if we can have the net income better or not worse than what they had by changing the crop.
Yep, that sounds great. Look, Dr. Andrew Ross from Australian National University is on the line. Can't get a vision for him, but Andrew, right over to you. Looks lovely to have you today, and we're looking forward to your presentations on groundwater in the near future with GRIP and NCGRT. So, yep, over to you, Andrew.
So I had a question just to both of the panelists about the connection between these BJ activities and the higher level activities. So noticing that these BJ areas can have kind of downstream effects or larger catchment related effects. I just wondered how they were hooking up their BJ activities with larger scales and particularly with the higher levels of government.
Our project is in the hard rock areas, and it is relatively easier to monitor and manage. But in alluvial aquifers, what you do at one point and the other people are doing different things, then really to influence the positive benefits is a little bit difficult, but it is possible. The local level, sorry, can you say, I'm missing the question here. Can you repeat, Andrew?
You there, Andrew?
Yes, so it's about, Passant, you have this local level of organization called the BJ,
Yes.
but then you have the BJs are at a fairly small scale.
Yes.
So at larger scale, you have larger planning areas. And, if you go really larger, you go to the state level.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering how you link together with that higher administrative level, but also considering that some of your BJs will only occupy a bit of a catchment.
Okay. So
how you make the links with the rest of the catchment planning.
Yeah, that's right. So the BJs, what we envisage is BJs part of these village groundwater cooperatives, which are part of the Gram Panchayat or the village council. And then when we outscale this, they connect to the block level and district level and so on. So what you do at the local level really accumulates when you're outscaling. And that's where the connection between, say, village council and the state agencies need to come in and support this program to have regional or state level benefits.
From Department of Environment in Adelaide, South Australia, Adrian Costa, how do they measure the groundwater depth and how do you fund the equipment?
So we have measured groundwater through, for example, putting sensors, groundwater sensors. That is more for making sure that we can validate some of the data collected by these BJs.
Yep.
But what we wanted to do was we wanted to keep things simple and cost effective. So all we had was a measuring tape for 50-meter length and a float at the bottom. And these BJs just lower this thing and read the reading on the tape. And so there's no moving part, no maintenance part, and it's simple enough.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. We'll keep going. Milit Shah from Queensland has asked a couple of questions here, a few actually. What are the benchmarks for groundwater levels? Are they compatible in each region?
So this project has run only for 5 years now. So we have some benchmarks, and it's very hard to say that groundwater level is rising or declining because, for example, when we started the project, water was quite deep. And then in 2016, we had a very good rain and some of the bores were overflowing. So you really can't do what the trend is. But what you can do is see the fluctuation and then plan your crop and water use accordingly.
Is there a parallel or complementary government-owned program, and how does MARVI differ from them? This is Milit.
Yes, so Central Groundwater Board has a monitoring program, but it's very sparsely monitored. So, for example, for the whole tehsil or block, there will be about 15 to 20 bores. Bores are monitored. Whereas, and that block will have maybe 300 villages, for example. And what we have done in this is for village, we have monitored 50 wells. So very densely monitored and monitored by local people. Whereas the Central Groundwater Board monitoring is by some person, and the data are not available easily to villagers, whereas these data are available to locals.
Yeah, and they're quite removed and are not located in the area. That's
and the local people sort of own the data, and they internalize what they are doing.
Yeah, a comment on that, Yogita? Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so in the coming monsoon, we are also trying to collect readings for this monsoon for check dams, wells, and recharge structures, and we are going to put all these readings into MyWell app, and we are looking forward to it.
Yep, that's excellent. So there's some definite usage there, Lewis and Passant. You get the feeling that you're doing something of that's getting some wider spread. Sabash has asked, what is the extent of the farmer's contribution in the MARVI project, cash or in kind?
So the farmers, the BJs, we sort of employed them. Yep. And the farmers' contribution now through the village groundwater cooperatives. So they have opened their bank account. They have put some money in there, and they are going to share the cost of, say, pipes to distribute water, and do some other things. So they are ready to. They are willing to bear the cost, and they have contacted some of the government agencies to help with some of the things they want to do along with their own contribution.
Mir Ahmed from the World Bank has asked, are these PowerPoints going to be available after the session? Are you okay to share these PowerPoints? I've suggested you probably would be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. No, thanks, Lewis. Thanks, Passant. That's good. This comes from an anonymous attendee. The MyWell app will play an important role. Everyone can easily access it. So Yogita has just reminded us of that just a moment ago. I hope this technology, this person is saying, I hope this technology should also be used by other groundwater departments in India. Is it likely?
I think personally, I think it is possible, and already we are talking to some other states. So it's the next step now to convince them that this data will be available, this app will be available, and they can put their data so that other people can use to make decisions.
Yep, sounds good. That sounds great. That would be really useful to have a single software that people use.
Yeah, well, we hope so.
and just on that line, maybe Louis, you can explain about this connection with the global groundwater monitoring network.
Yeah, I kind of talked about it briefly in my presentation. So we're currently working on an integration with them so that the data that's recorded inside of MyWell will also be copied to their system and vice versa. So when new data is entered into a GGMN, it's copied back. So we're currently looking at how can we do that integration, and then also how do we make it so that it's recyclable, so that someone else, comes along, a week after them or whatever, and says, we want to integrate as well. We would love to, make it kind of an easy process for other people to integrate with MyWell, so they can start to use MyWell for their own groundwater monitoring projects. The other idea is really it kind of is more as what I was going on about with open data, is to find a source of truth that can be shared. So, instead of always copying data from one service to another and duplicating the amount of data, is there another way that we could have a central system or a set of systems that multiple organizations can send groundwater data to? And then I, as a groundwater researcher or someone working in government, can say, okay, well, I want all of the data sources for India. So this would include Central Groundwater Board, this would include some of the other organizations we've worked with MARVI, all of the MARVI data, and so on and so forth. So it's about trying to establish a common ground and a common way for us to work together and share these data.
How about having a platform like that that's common? That would be such an advantage.
Yeah, it's something I'd love to do. It's a challenge though, because everyone wants to own the platform. So that's why we have 5 different credit cards with different bank logos on them in our pockets.
One thing that was said is, can the procedures for these BJs be available freely? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, definitely. So we have just published a journal article which summarizes how to set up a BJ program, how they work, what works, what can go wrong, and how you can connect and use them to these groundwater cooperatives and so on. So I'm happy to make that available.
Thank you. Thank you. And the MARVI declarations along with that as well, of course. Yes. So we're going to leave it there. That's absolutely brilliant. I've had a great time here just listening to all this and watching the development. It's really good. 3 webinars coming up. Zero energy for a water authority. How about that? Not using no energy to pump water around the big city. And the course, HECRAS course down there. That's all I've got to say. I think we're going to have to finish it there. Passant, Lewis, Yogita, it's such a delight. But thank you everyone. Yeah. Yep.
I would like to share something.
Sure. Yep.
If someone like to go through the updates of MARVI, they can visit Facebook page at MARVI, or they can visit marvi.org website if they want to know more about MARVI.
Fantastic. That's really good. Thanks a lot for that, Yogita. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll leave it there, and it's been a lovely day. Thank you, everyone.